share your experiences with us in being a different businessman, the pains and the gains.
As somebody who plays in the real estate development space, obviously there are challenges through every step of the way, from what you give to your client and then how you go about the production process of that product. One of the challenges we faced as we entered the real estate development space was one in which people who had come before us were basically involved, or were more interested in profit, in what they could make off the client, and that's affected largely the quality of delivery to the client. It affected the kind of value the client will get for his money. It affected whether they will deliver to the client on time or they will not deliver to the client on time. So they didn't see the client as somebody to be served. They didn't see him as a fellow human being who needed to get value for his resources. They just saw the client as somebody to be milked of their resources. I think that was one of the um, markers we put in place as we entered the space, where we chose to focus on the client and ensure that the client had value for money. Now, so that threw up, if you like, challenges of reduced profits, which is what most businessmen will be interested in. So it reduced our profits. It made us go over and above to get something good for the client. We had to contend with other players in the industry who felt uncomfortable with what we were doing and then raised several issues. That's on the side of the client. In the course of doing business on behalf of my organization, I had to do land transactions of in the region of ₦1 billion when you want to purchase a single piece of land in that kind of sum. And I remember once when my boss then said to me, Tunji, you are making me write a check of, I think it was 970 million we're going to pay for a piece of land. And it was like, I'd never done this kind of thing before. This project that we bought land for 1 billion actually ended up at an over 3 billion naira project, which started and stopped on my computer. From getting the land to getting approval to getting contractors to supervising the construction to supervising the sale. I mean, everything passed through my table. And um, I should say that, I mean, the company I was working for then, we probably made a profit of 1.2 to 1.5 billion on the project. And I was given a very generous bonus of about 12 million naira or something like that. It didn't change me. It didn't do anything to me. Life just kept going, you know. And of course, that kind of relationship, I must say, also helped to get the confidence of my employers, because I remember the next transactions after that. It wasn't as expensive. I think it was about 460 million or something that we had to buy land. This one, okay, when we're transacting on the 970 million land, my employer met the seller of the land before we bought it. The next time I was transacting on 460 million land, my employer never met the seller. Never. He visited the site once when I showed it to him and said, I think this is the next place we should buy. And that was as far as he knew about it. The next time he came, we were already building the houses on it. So he kind of won the confidence. And I mean, in all clear conscience, I was just doing whatever I had to do as unto the Lord, knowing that God is a rewarder and he never fails to reward. So I don't know, maybe God has helped me to the point that the number of zeros after the figure is not as intimidating as perhaps it could be for other people. But to be honest, I never was intimidated. I never was worried about it. It was just another number. It was work to be done, and that's what it was. But those were things that God had helped one to know that if it's not yours, it's not yours. You just would move on and face what is yours. I have been privileged to lead the estate development in say 5 or 6 locations with my company. And I have chats with people who say to me, you should have at least 5 or 6 houses to yourself now, one in every estate. And I smile and I say to them, I couldn't afford to buy any of the houses we were selling. And I mean, some people look at me very silly, like, what do you mean by that kind of thing? You mean you could not arrange to keep one for yourself and, all the things that people will do? But we have learned that if it's not ours, it's not ours. We'll wait for what is ours, and God will bless what is ours. So that's on one side of transacting. There's also issues with the regulatory side of dealing with government and government agencies, and that could be pretty challenging. You'll be ready to be delayed. Uh, I mean, people just make it clear to you that the reason you are not getting this is because you are not ready to play ball. And so you then be ready to say, I would rather do things by the books so that I can sleep easy, I can sleep in peace, than cut corners and have to deal with the consequences, which will come at any time. So we suffered delays in approval processes, which we could have bought our way through, but we'll just decide, let's do the right thing. Let's go the way we ought to go, and we'll go through the process. Painful at times. I mean, there were times my boss would say to me, Tunji, but people are getting this done. Why can't you also get it done? And I'm like, I'll get it done the way I know to get it done. I mean, I'm talking about this. I remember a particular property in Lagos in GRA Keja that we were going to buy. We actually bought, and there was a concept of what we should develop. And I told him it's not possible to do this development. We can't get approval for it. And he said to me, Tunji, but people are getting approval for it. Why can't you get the approval for it? And all of that. Down the line, he agreed that we should sell the property because I said we couldn't get approval for what he thought we should do there. And somebody bought the property off us. But I mean, I was grateful to God because my boss then came back to me, I think about a year down the line, having known the experience that the person who bought from us went through. And he was like, oh, Tunji, you said so, that this thing was actually not possible. I probably should have listened to you earlier. So again, we do have such things as we go through the experience. So those are issues we have had to go through. We have had to wade through regulatory authorities coming to site to either seal the site for no just cause or seal the site because we made a genuine omission in our processes. And they would expect that we'll come and buy them over. I will insist that no problem, we'll wait to do what we have to do so that we can get this right once and let us be clear that it is not the easiest of routes to take, but it's a route worth taking. As a matter of fact, I used to do government business at some point as a contractor in one of the federal agencies in Abeokuta. I tried a few things, and my stand was very clear as to what I would do and what I would not do. And I couldn't last there, I must be honest, because I wasn't going to play ball. And so I wasn't seen as somebody who they could continue to give contracts to. But I was happy to move on because I could sleep in peace, I could live in peace, and God still kept us going. It's a tough route to follow. Um, it challenges your faith, it challenges your heart when you see the ungodly, as it were, when you see them prospering, and it looks like they're getting things done quickly, they're getting things done faster, and you are just, you know, choosing to hold on to God and to refuse to pay bribes and to refuse to play ball and all of that, and how you suffer for it. Perhaps I should say two things that come to my mind. One is that it's not just government business where you have such experience. And I've been at both levels of somebody who gets jobs to do and somebody who then awards jobs to people to do. In my experience of awarding jobs to people to do, I have come to see that your job will speak for you. So people that we give jobs to are not, it's not because they even know anybody in the company, ab initio. They got an opportunity, they did a good job of it, and then they were kept in the system. So I'd like to note that yes, your job will speak for you. Also, as a Christian, as a child of God, I mean, in recent times, I've been confronting myself with the reality of the fact that if I have the Holy Spirit living in me, I cannot be like an ordinary person. Something needs to change, something needs to shift. I remember an experience I had. I was to build a warehouse for a factory in Ibadan. And the person who was in charge of the contract didn't want me to get it because I wasn't going to play ball. But I had the opportunity to talk to himself and his bosses at a session. I'll never forget how the Holy Spirit inspired my heart to, because I knew it was a warehouse, so they needed volume. And I mean, it was just the inspiration of God. And I said to them, why don't we redesign your roof and make it this different way and increase the volume of what you can store here? Oh, they never saw it that way. And of course, even though the person in charge wanted somebody from whom he could get more money to do the thing and all of that, the idea that came up at that meeting just got everybody going like, no, this person knows what he's doing. He's going to do it for us. So what I'm saying is that as a child of God, we do have the Holy Spirit working with us, working in us. And if we let him, he can inspire us and give us direction with which to do things. I should also say that I have had experiences where I thought that cutting corners would help. I mean, at different times of growth, at different times of at different levels of walk with God and all of that. And I was able to return to know that I got my fingers burnt when there was opportunity to get jobs and you thought it was a big job and you sat down to negotiate with people. And at the end of the day, the job wouldn't come to you and you just have a heartache and all of that. In some of the processes, I even lost money going through that, you know, but so those are things that, so I'm able to speak from both sides of it to know that the times when I chose to wait and chose to follow God and chose to stick with what was right, even if I didn't get something, I didn't lose something. But more often than not, I then got something that got me going. Again, as somebody who had bosses at different stages of my career and at different stages of development, at times you have the conflict of, so what do you do when your boss asks you to do something that is not what you would want to do as a child of God? How do you deal with it? mean, those are real tough conflicts when you are asked to make calculations and alter figures because government was the one who was going to pay and things could be overlooked and all of that. I mean, initially, there were things I felt, okay, I'm not responsible. I have a duty to obey my boss. So I will do those things. Sometimes, I think in reality, at the onset, I didn't even know what they were doing with the computations that I was doing, at the early stages of my career. But at the point when I came to know, I then began to pull back from doing all the kind of things that were involved. Did I suffer for it? Absolutely. I mean, so there were things they would, well, I don't know if to say suffer, but there were things they would then share among themselves, share amongst other people who were involved with the work, and I would be left out. But in the midst of it, um, there was always cause to be grateful to God because, again, one had enjoyed the favor of God walking through it. I should say also that walking through the career over the years, as I have done, I've seen that if we follow God, God makes it up to us in so many ways. I mean, I don't know what it is, but clients who have worked with me, contractors who have worked with me, people who have bought property in estates that we develop, the kind of relationship we then go on to have, and the kind of opportunities they then go on to bring me into. It's just simply amazing. And to my mind, it's part of the ways by which God repays our faithfulness and our stand with Him. Well, I do get challenged with the life of Joseph, who said, why should I do this great wickedness and sin against God? That comes to my heart pretty regularly. I also am mindful of the fact that in whatever space I am, in whatever service I'm offering, service is done as unto the Lord because ultimately He's the employer. He's my employer, He's my employer's employer, He's the employer of everyone ultimately. So that also rings in my heart the fact that service is done unto the Lord, um, whether as a civil servant, as a public servant, as a private sector servant, whatever it is, service is done as unto the Lord, and He is a rewarder, and He rewards. So those two scriptures, Joseph's case comes to my heart. Every misbehavior is wickedness against God.